Welcome to another episode of the Flag Stays Down podcast, the We Want It All edition. Parker, we're still missing Matt this week, but we'll celebrate without him. We won the conference league this week. On that note, how you doing?
We did win the conference league. So yes, we have won it all now. I don't know if that's a great thing because not everyone has a chance to win the conference league, but hey, we won the competition that was in front of us. So it's good news. And I'm doing good. I'm traveling for work currently right now. I'm in lovely Nashville, Tennessee. So here for kind of like an offsite planning session for a project that I'm working on. We've done a lot of it remote, and so now we're kind of planning out the next 12 to 18 months and doing it in person. So, and I feel like you get to know people a lot better when you're 7 beers deep on Broadway Street in the heart of Nashville. So, it should be a lot of fun. And but the sessions are packed, and like time just flies when you're kind of doing stuff like this. But I work with a lot of Brits, and they love me because I know Premier League better than most Americans do. And so it was kind of funny because there was a lady there, and she's like, "I can't believe you guys are talking Premier League at dinner." And I was like, they just happened to find one of the larger Premier League fans in the States. So I'm sorry that you don't get to talk about like royal weddings and things like that. You get to talk about you get to listen to us talk about soccer. So, or I do call it football around them just to make them feel like they're at home. So yeah, life's good, man. How about you? How's things going?
It's good. Spent the weekend in Kansas City celebrating my niece's second birthday. So that's always a blast down there. And came back and nice chill day at work, so I can't complain. Um, and this is about the time where we wrap up and do our end of season pod and our awards and all that. But shit, we got matches in about 2 weeks here.
It's kind of amazing. I know the boys aren't going to get much of a break, which I hope. Like I know we want to do well in the Club World Cup, but I still need like Caicedo and Palmer to get a touch of a break because those boys have been running hard.
Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit because I think we got some reinforcements coming. Um, but let's tackle the big one here, and that is like you mentioned, and like I mentioned, we've won it all. Conference League winners after a 4-1 victory over Betis in Poland. Started off a little rocky. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. I've tried several times over the last couple days, but that guy from Betis scored in about the ninth minute. Uh, and then, boy, that second half was really something. Four goals and coming home with a trophy.
I think I mean Cole Palmer gets a lot of the credit for kind of the turnaround that the team had. He was at the heart of both of the first two goals, which kind of felt like it was starting to put it out of reach, even though it wasn't. At 0-0, the game's not out of reach, right? So 2-1 kind of felt like we were starting to really control the game. And then, the third goal, I think Sancho scored the third goal and Caicedo the fourth. So those goals just sort of felt like, whipped cream on top. But um, it shows you how good of a season Cole Palmer had. We talked a little bit about that last week, which the fans of the show didn't get to hear because of uploading problems via podcasting systems. So apologies. We did record last week, and that episode is kind of in the vault. But we talked a little bit about the preview of this match, and now we get to talk about sort of what we feel like after the win. So, Collins, how does this win? Like how did you feel emotionally for this win? Was it a big deal for you? Was it kind of ho hum because we had already locked up Champions League? Like what how did this one make you feel?
It was a final. It was a European final. So I didn't get a chance to watch the match live. I promised my son, who was at school during the match, that record it and watch it with him. I did not turn off my phone this time. Oh yeah, I guess everybody missed that story from last week too. But uh, second straight match I've had to record. But even as I was watching it later that day, and Parker, you did a great job filling us in the group chat what was happening. Still those nerves, and still those nerves all day in the build up, and um, we go down in the ninth minute, and I even knowing what happened, I'm like, oh shit, like what the hell? It was a poor first half, and it was like, oh no, this is embarrassment coming. Um, but to then flip the script and drop 4 in the second half, um, I don't care what kind of cup final it was. It was a cup final. I got to watch the team lift a trophy at the end of it, and we're the first club to win it all, which I think puts a little bit extra on it. Maybe takes this from a conference league to a Europa League kind of a win.
Yeah, and like the goal, watching the goal live, like it hurt. And I don't want to blame just point fingers at people, but like when you have a center back pairing of Trev and Benoit Badiashile, who I can't remember the last time Badiashile played. It might have been against your guard, and I can't remember, but like he hasn't played a ton. He hasn't featured a lot for us this season. He's kind of gotten on the back burner in our center back rotation. And Trev has his moments of being shaky, and I think Trev is one of those center backs that plays to the level of his co-partner. And when he's next to someone good, his game kind of rises up with him. And when he's next to someone that he's got to cover for, I think his game starts to suffer a little bit. So those two being back there together, I didn't think was the best pairing in the world. It was the only part of that lineup that thought was a little shaky, and I thought our close down on the goal that we conceded was poor. So that's kind of like how I felt about that. I think some of it is nerves, and not just like when you're playing under the lights in a different country, like there's nerves. Cup final, there's nerves, and what I explained last week was just this is a safe face match for Chelsea. Everyone in the world believes Chelsea should win this match, but you got to go out and perform it and do it. So on paper, Chelsea wins this match, 99 out of 100. But the Real Betis fans were hoping it was the one, right? They were hoping that this is the day that their team prevailed, and they were loud and in full voice. And tip my cap to the fans who came out and showed out for that reason, right? So as a Chelsea fan, you're thinking, is this the one, or do we have enough class and gas in the tank to kind of pull this one out? And I think as the match wore on, that became more and more evident. And I don't think the goals that we scored were fluky by any means. They were class goals, top goals, created by Palmer, finished off by Enzo and Jackson first off, and then the Sancho goal. Sancho's done that a couple of times for us. Little shimmies, little shakes, puts the ball in the back of the net, and then Caicedo takes his shots when he gets them, and yeah, happened to get a little fortunate and have one going. So it was a building game. I didn't feel the nerves that you felt. I just felt I would have felt the embarrassment had we not pulled it off. So that was kind of more where I was coming from in this match of if we handle our biz, we should be fine. So nervous from that standpoint, but not nervous of like the real jitters of going up against a behemoth.
See, and I think a lot of people were sleeping on Betis, and some of the reason why I had nerves building up to this was, there was all the talk in the week leading up about how Maresca looks up to Pellegrini, that he calls him his football dad. That's really where he learned all of his coaching, everything from. You look at Betis's roster, and I texted you guys in the group chat this week that it's like the Spurs of La Liga, and you go through and it's a bunch of players who used to play for big clubs. Mark Bartra coming up at Barcelona, Ricardo Rodriguez, Anthony Isco. I don't want to throw Johnny Cardoso in there, but Pablo Fornals, Gio Lo Celso, Spurs. There are some names in there, and you could see, especially with Isco, kind of pulling the strings, that they wanted it. They wanted to show, and their fans, as you mentioned, absolutely wanted to show that they were here to play. And you could call it a trap game for us if you want. We'd already secured Champions League, and doesn't really matter if we win this or not. But I got to give Enzo Maresca credit. All of that building up to this, I got to give Enzo Maresca credit. The first half was shit. Absolutely. Game plan did not work. And you can say, oh, the players took it on themselves or whatever, but Noni Madueke has come out midweek. Cole Palmer is in his funny bit of media. Reece James, that they've all come out and said, like, hey, Maresca told us at half, like, basically stop dicking around. Like, you got to go and take this by the horns here. And kind of credited him with that. And he makes a vital substitution in the 46th minute. It's something that, we gave Tuchel shit about, something we gave Lampard shit about, something we gave Pochettino shit about, is you're sticking with these guys too long. Make a sub already. Malo Gusto gets burned for the opening goal. Looks like crap that whole first half. Reece James comes on, tells the manager, "Don't worry, boss. We're gonna win." Sure as shit. Game changes right there, 46th minute. And honestly, all of his subs were on point, and I got to give him a lot of credit for going out and playing for the win here.
Yeah, playing for the win, and then to just add to it, the Dewsbury Hall for Nico Jackson in the 80th minute to try to like secure up your midfield. Nico's putting a shift. He's got a goal. Like, I like that mentality. They didn't go into a hole. I mean, they scored 2 goals after that, so they definitely didn't like completely defense up. So it wasn't quite like a John Obi Mikel kind of a move, but we haven't seen a lot of that where we saw a lot of like for like subs this year. Not as much like tactical change shifting subs throughout the match this year. So good to see a dude like Kieran Dewsbury Hall, someone who did feature pretty prominently in this contest. And look, I haven't been his biggest supporter on this podcast, and I still am not. But what I do appreciate is a guy who did help us get here and did play in the majority of the matches leading up to this Conference League final, get a chance to at least feature in the game and kind of be a part of it. Because look, I'm still a human. I still have feelings for people and folks, and it would suck to help your team get somewhere the whole way and then have someone else kind of get all the credit for it. So tip my cap to him. He handled the situation like a professional and did his job and celebrated with the team. So good on him.
And I don't know if he got credit for it. There might have been a deflection in there, but he set up Sancho's goal. And again, I'm not sure if it was touched along the way, but it was his pass that got Sancho in for that third goal, and I think that was just a couple minutes after he came on too. So well played to the Thiago Silva of the midfield.
We're never gonna let you live that comment down, man. But that's I'm glad you can still wear that with a badge of honor.
So you mentioned Nico Jackson scoring, and for those of you who weren't able to listen to last week's pod, meaning everybody, we talked a little bit about Nico Jackson's future. He's coming off of a 2-game suspension. He's still got another game to serve that at the start of the next Premier League campaign. Mentally, he's looked checked out, frustrated, however you want to call it. Gosh, I think going back to the Spurs game at this point. Scores in the 70th minute, the eventual game winner. I don't think he knew anything about it. It's right off the chest. But we talked about, what a goal would do for Nico Jackson, what a start and what a goal would do for Nico Jackson in this match. We've since signed Liam Delap. Well, not officially, but he's part of the program, and we're chasing one, if not 2 more strikers. What does this mean for Nico Jackson?
I'm gonna partially ignore most of what you said and just insert my own little bit because it'll add to the Nico Jackson-ness of all of this. We did talk about Nico Jackson last week. We did talk about a start and how he would respond to a start. Would he go out there and be a menace and kind of help create things? Would he get a goal? Things like that. I thought his mentality was decent for most of the match. I didn't see anything too glaring from him. Did get a goal, but the thing I'll say that feels like the most Nico Jackson moment is right before he got subbed off, which is Nico Jackson is in and through on goal, one on goalie, and takes not just one too many touch, but a very, very poor touch. Ends up going down with a hammy allegedly goes down with a hammy. Hopes he goes down with a hammy because he needs to save at least a little bit of face. He just out dribbled himself and turns a 2-on goalie into a pretty easy, comfortable moment for the keeper. In a 2-1 game, that's a cup final. It's a big moment. We don't have this thing fully locked up yet. We're not there. what a goal does in that situation is it basically kills off the game. And unfortunately, strikers of his caliber are going to be judged on those moments, and not everyone's going to be perfect. Everyone from Erling Haaland on has moments like that, but it just felt like a very Nico moment, that one that we've seen too many times, and it would be sad to see him go out on that moment. That was his last sort of play for Chelsea, and it would also be a little serendipitous of that was his last moment for Chelsea. I don't know how else to say it, man. That's just like he's had his ups, he's had his downs. It's Nico, right? And so I think the Delap signing is awesome, and I think if we get one more in, I think there's probably not room for him anymore. If we don't sign anyone else, I think Nico stays, and I think that you have to kind of evaluate it like that. So that's where I see him at. I don't think he did enough to kind of cement his place with the team in that moment, even though he had a relatively decent outing.
So, we talked about Delap. Mentioned Delap coming in. Hugo Ekitike from Frankfurt is the other one rumored. Possibly 85 million pound, or at least that's what Frankfurt is requesting, transfer. Victor Gyorkis also lightly rumored out. It seems like Europe's top clubs are kind of staying away from him at the moment. It sounds like nobody really wants to deal with Sporting, which is understandable. But there is interest in a striker, so that leads me to believe that Nico Jackson is gone.
Yeah, and I think oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I would say we signed him for 35 million. What would you say he's worth now? What do you think if you put Nico Jackson on the market, you get for him? And where does he end up? What kind of club does he go to?
It feels like he's a French league striker, and I feel like someone's paying 45 to 50 for him. He's got numbers to back it up, and he's got. I don't know where he ranked in Premier League goals this year, but I know he's up there in the top 10 probably of goal scorers in the Premier League, which I think is going to kind of rank him pretty high. And his hold up play, while not elite, is still pretty good. And I think you buy a guy like Nico Jackson for what the upside could be with him. And it's something that we talked about in this pod for years and years. It's just like years and years, days and days, weeks and weeks, whatever. It's just something we talked about a lot with Nico is that where he is in his development cycle, versus where top strikers kind of ultimately go. He's still got a lot of growing to do, but he's got some time to do it. And I think, he could be a top striker in a league someday. And so I think that he still has a decent amount of upside.
Yeah, and I had that 50 million number in my head going into the pod tonight, and yeah, I could see him in France, but would he consider that a step down? Unless it's PSG. The jury's out on that. Return to Spain. I don't know enough about La Liga to know who needs a striker, but I know all the Italian clubs are looking for one. I don't know if he fits there. I don't think he's technical enough, but Germany might be a good fit. Kind of Timo Werner-esque. It's just a matter of finding somebody to pay for him, right?
Nico Jackson's got a 50 million pound valuation from Transfer Market. Euro, not pound, but close enough. Feels pretty spot on.
Go us.
I think it's just a matter of what I think it's a little tricky with Nico is the renegotiation of the contract part, because we've got him on like an 8-year deal or something, because he just extended with us too. Not like we just tacked on another 2 years last year. So I think it's like a 7 to 8 years left on his contract. So I don't know who has the ability to take that on. So that's where I think negotiations might get a little tricky with Nico, where you'd have to renegotiate his contract after you buy out the rights to it.
Yeah, he is on. Oh gosh, he's only on 65,000 pounds a week. But yeah, signed through 2032.
Yeah, which I mean, it feels like a steal in the sense of the 60. The wage feels fair. you don't have one of those like crazy Garnacho contracts to have to worry about and deal with, where someone's kind of over market value for what they bring. So um, yeah, I don't know enough about how that works. Where like if our Nico's agent's gonna kind of demand you stick to the term and improve the salary sort of a thing, or what that kind of looks like.
Yeah, and especially with his dad representing him, that's going to be even more interesting. But turning to the other striker who will be joining in the next couple of days, Liam Delap, 30 million pound release clause with Ipswich, chose us over Manchester United, Everton, and Newcastle. What do you think? Where does he fit into the squad?
It sounds like he's taken the number 9, literally and figuratively. It's a curse at Chelsea. The last how many haven't done what they've been destined to do. Liam Delap on paper feels like something we've been missing. Um, I think it's funny because people are like, if Nico Jackson was the young Drogba, then Liam Delap is the young Diego Costa, just in style of play. And yeah, I think it's something we've been missing. It's just that physical presence, and be able to kind of like beat someone to a second ball and get some scrappy goals is something we've really needed. Um, our delivery is pretty standard, pretty good, and I think that we get enough balls into the box, but the balls that get into the box don't like fall to the feet of people, and I think you need a striker to help like disrupt that first clearance, where either they're beating someone to the ball and getting a head on it and putting it to the back post, or just their presence brings more people to the ball, and just a physical clash lets a ball bounce and lets Mark Cucurella kind of scoop it up and put it in. I think we just need a little bit more of that physical brash play instead of that like ultimate kind of finesse play. I'll tell you a very quick story that kind of cements that. Now, I watched the Champions League final, and it's amazing watching other leagues play. And a team like PSG, they shoot every chance they get. They just fire. They just like don't ask questions. They just fire. And I'm just laughing to myself where it's like I didn't ever think of the Premier League as more of a finessey build-up league, but I feel like it's become that. And they just don't. It's not a second ball kind of a league. It's a clear the first ball and you look for the perfect kind of interplay to get high XG moments. And PSG looks for lots and lots and lots of low XG moments, and that's just the style of how they attack. And I think we need to create some goals, scoring opportunities out of lower XG moments to balance what we already bring to the table, because I think we do the other part, decently well. I just think we need to be able to do a little bit of both, and I think a Liam Delap fits that model a lot.
Yeah, and we talking about putting balls into the box and doesn't always find feet, uh, doesn't always find heads too. Yeah, Enzo Fernandez had a handful of headed goals. Mark Cucurella had what 3 or 4 this year. Those are some of your smaller guys on the team. Like you said, Liam Delap's big guy. He's a bully. Let him get up there and see if he can get a touch on it. Like you said, to disrupt things. I like the move. I don't necessarily see him as the starter out the gates. He did score more goals than Nico Jackson this year, but he also played the majority of the season as opposed to Jackson, who missed time with injury and suspension and all that good stuff. So it's a change of pace, and if you've listened to this pod for any amount of time, you know that I love a good change of pace. So yeah, start 5th minute, 70th minute, things aren't going well, throw something else out there, see if that sticks. So I'm a big fan. We'll see how the rest of the striker market shakes out here. That may kind of change things as well. But no, Delap definitely a good signing at 30 million.
I was gonna say at 30 million, it feels like a complete steal for a striker of his caliber. And we were just talking about Nico Jackson at 50 million. I feel like in the open market, Delap gets 50 million. Yeah, he commands 50 million, and so it's just that release clause for the relegation that really helped us out, and it creates a little bit of a bidding war. But it also allows us to bring someone in under market value. And I think if you ask most Chelsea fans today, would you rather have Delap than Jackson? I think not like a 90-10 ratio of people say Delap, but I think a 65 to 70% might say Delap. And if he's worth theoretically 20 million less, then I think it's an absolute no-brainer. Because I think if you're putting him on equal valuation, then I think most people still take Delap today. And so that's where it feels like a steal at 30.
Yeah, and it's not like some unknown that we're going and signing out of Brazil and we're the only team interested. It's Newcastle's interested. Arsenal was interested at one point. Manchester United, who are trying to rebound, are interested. Everton wanted to make him the face of the project. Like there was interest around this kid, and seems like a decent move to me.
Yeah, it feels solid. And I think like there had to be a little bit of sparkle too with Everton having a brand new stadium that they're debuting next season, like face of the project, and Everton had some sneaky wins this year. Yeah, I think they beat Newcastle the last game of the season. It took one from us. So like they're definitely putting some pieces together too.
So another signing announced this week is or not this week, today. The second, and not necessarily announced, but formalized, we'll say, after the agreement was reached in March, and that is Dario Esugo. He was on loan at Las Palmas, my year-to-year FIFA team, from Sporting in Portugal as a part of the Quenda deal as well. I think paid them about 70 million for both, but 20 million for Esugo. Do you know anything about him? Where does he fit?
I know a little bit about him. He feels like a defensive mid, not gonna, you know, part of where Caicedo played sometimes this year, but really, if I'm looking for a direct comp, it feels like Lavia, um, which until I see this dude play, I don't know if he upseats him. But without knowing too much, do you think he does? Do you think he takes Romeo Lavia's position or kind of his role on the team, given his unreliability with injury?
I don't think he does. I think Lavia is going to be counted on as kind of your box to box this year. Um, Looking at Isugo's kind of advanced metrics, he does seem to fit that Caicedo mold. I mean, almost to a T. It's scary when you bring up the map, which I don't have here, but I saw earlier today. Um, Isugo's stats in La Liga this year versus Caicedo, and his metrics in the Premier League are almost 1-to-1. So I think honestly, it's going to be an issue of squad rotation. Uh, you have a guy who can play the exact same role and do the exact same job. Maybe not the exact same job. Caicedo's on a different level, but do a very similar job in that role. So there's not two different systems running between two different squads within the team.
I don't hate that. I don't hate it. I just don't know. Like, yeah, I fear for like minutes with those guys. I think like um, in theory land, it's great to have a lot of depth, and it's really good to have um, guys that can kind of have that squad A, squad B mentality. I just feel like you get lost in the sauce a little bit when you've been sort of completely relegated from one team and you're only used in a separate competition. And this year it's going to be tough because we'll have FA Cup and we have League Cup, but like Champions League versus Premier League, you're not gonna be playing your B team in either of those competitions. It's gonna have to be some sort of hybrid A, or like 13, 14 players competing for 22 slots, 11 and 11. So I think like you're gonna have some dudes playing Thursdays and Sundays out of that. So um, yeah, to me, I think Lavia is the easy one to pick on just because of his reliability, and Lavia is the easy one to pick on because um, he is a little bit more defensive in nature. And I think Asugo is a little bit more defensive in nature too. I think that's where he excels more. Caicedo has more like creative, like forward passing out of him than what it looks like Asugo brings to the table. So I don't think you outseat Caicedo in any contest. And I think he plays the majority of contests, and the rest of those midfielders kind of rotate around him. You're on mute, dog.
Thank you. And it is a scary midfield. When you look at who is all going to be, at least for the Club World Cup, things may change with loans and sales and all that. But you've got your midfield three coming back from this season of Enzo, Caicedo, Lavia, which was a fantastic three. And when they were all on the pitch at the same time, even better. And now you got Asugo coming in, Andre Santos coming back from loan after a year and a half at Strasbourg. But and I think he was Young Player of the Year in France, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
So the way I'm looking at it is they're building so that there doesn't have to be that change of system. Even if it's not A squad, B squad, it's you play 60 minutes on Thursday against Real Madrid. You play 50 or 30 against Sunderland on the weekend. I think there's a straight swap there between Asugo and Caicedo. I think Andre Santos is your Enzo Fernandez kind of swap. And I think Lavia is the floater. And I'm not discounting him at all by saying that. I think he just has the skill set to play both. And so you kind of go the hot hand. I mean, you could see when Lavia was healthy, and that's the thing, when Lavia was healthy, that he was kind of the engine room of this team. He was the one slicing and dicing. He was the one making tackles when we needed it. He was doing a little bit of everything. And I think Maresca appreciates him more than we've been able to see. So between those five, oof, man, it is I'm going to say this right now. It's going to be my early prediction. The best midfield in the Premier League.
It'd be hard to argue against. And one of the things that I think a lot of people forget about Lavia is that first, like, I don't know, call it 14 matches of the year. We were really good. Like we didn't concede a lot, and we scored a bunch of goals, and Lavia featured in a lot of those games. It was funny because once the downturn happened, post Boxing Day, he wasn't there, and me, putting my foot in my mouth about who is this ghost? I don't even know who he is. Was wondering if he was the key to all of our success. Like I said that because it was a correlated downturn that we experienced, and I think he's going to get part of it, but obviously not all of it. He wasn't like the magic man that just made everything kind of click for us, but he was an important part, and I think Chelsea had a lot of important players this year. We've gone at length of talking about what Cucurella did to the team, what Cole Palmer did to the team, what Moi Caicedo did to the team, and just the impact that they had. Levi Colwell, amongst others, right? So Lavia's name falls down on the depth charts, but I think his role was important when he did feature. And I hope he's part of our future. But at the same time, I do have to say, if he is the sacrificial lamb for an Asugo and a Santos to be able to shine, I think I'm all right with it. Like he's one that I'm not married to. And if he doesn't make it and doesn't get game time because those other guys are featuring, I think today I'm okay with it.
And while we're on the topic of midfielders, just briefly, Enzo Fernandez scores the game tying goal off of, first of all, beautiful setup by Cole Palmer. But I've watched it a million times now. Enzo Fernandez and Reece James after the goal in each other's faces. Enzo slaps Reece James. They headbutt. Oh man, I know nothing about what they said. I don't know anything what they talk about in the locker room, but I saw leadership there, and that's something that this team has been missing. So that was fun to see, and I just wanted to shout that out before we got off the topic of midfielders here.
It was like our two captains, really, right? And that moment, I think, was just epic. I mean, it's winning Selly of the Year for the next 5 years. It was just that good, and it just Yeah, it was a moment of passion. It was one of the things that I do tip my hat to on this team is Maresca was fired up when they scored goals. The team was fired up when they scored goals. I thought they over celebrated the win, but fuck it, they won a cup final. So like, to me, I thought it was a little much for the stake and where the team is, but we also haven't taken home hardware in a minute. So these guys have been through a lot, and Enzo hasn't won anything major since coming, and Caicedo hasn't won anything major since coming. So European Cup final, they did deserve it, and so they deserve to celebrate like that.
So one last position group here, and that's the wingers. Jaden Sancho, as we mentioned, beautiful goal. I've seen it a couple times out of him. Kind of an up and down year. And we've talked about many times. He's got that 25 million pound make it permanent deal, with a 5 million pound penalty if we send him back. But as we know, Manchester United are paying much of his salary. And so for him to come here, it's going to have to be on our terms. There's been talks this week, and in the past week of renegotiating, possibly trying to get him to stay if we can get him kind of under our salary cap, salary limits, whatever you want to call it. But we're also interested in Gittins, Bino Gittins from Borussia Dortmund, and Nico Williams, apparently, from Athletic Bilbao, although there's some salary issues there as well. Boy, winger position. It's going to be fun with Esteval and Kendry Paz also coming in. Well, what do we do with this clusterfuck of a position?
And see, this is the one I'm going to let you go first on. I want to hear what you have to say. I don't base my opinion on what you have said. I'm just curious where you're at with this one.
Well, I'm going to start by saying I'm glad Matt's not here. That was a nice little heated back and forth in our group chat. Jaden Sancho's a fine player. He's a squad player in this squad. Goes back to United, I think he's a starter. Goes to Dortmund, I think he's a starter. In this squad, the one we are building, he's a squad guy. And I'm not paying a squad guy $250,000 or £250,000 every week. And if he doesn't want to take a pay cut, which I would not blame him, I would not want to take a 6-figure pay cut either. Then fine, send him back. Then he's Manchester United's problem. Thank you for your service. Thank you for scoring the goal. Thank you for the trophy. Good to have you here. But I think, honestly, Pedro Neto has been one of your better players this year. And he's a guy who can whip in a ball that Liam Delap can put away easily. Esteval is coming in, and I think he's not the initial starter, but I think by the time we get to the January break, maybe Boxing Day, I think he's your right wing starter. Noni Madueke has looked pretty decent on the left. By no means, is he secure in that position. And I think Mudryk comes back at some point this year. So, if you can go out and sign a solidified starting left winger, because Esteval at some point is going to be your starting right winger. Noni Madueke is a fine starter on the right. Pedro Neto is a fine starter on the right, but it's going to be Esteval long term. If you can go get a certified star on the left, then you've solidified the position and you are good for the next 5 to 6 years. Jaden Sancho is just not that guy. So I would love a Nico Williams. I'm good with breaking our salary limits for a guy like that. But I think you have to solidify it. You can't just piecemeal it anymore.
What are his salary requirements?
It's about the same as Jaden Sancho. It's about $250 a week.
So my fear with that is it's going to create a dynamic at the club, whether you want it to or not. I mean, salaries are public. And when you look at what Cole Palmer is making, and when you look at what Caicedo is making, and when you look at what Enzo's making, and Reece James and everyone else, and he's going to be double that, because I don't think any of those guys are more than 125, 130. So if he's going to be double that, I feel like that creates, because they all work hard, man. They all give a lot when they play, and so you're not bringing double anything unless you're scoring 40 goals a year. You're not bringing double to the club. So I fear that, because everyone else has bought into this project, and they bought in at a time where it wasn't worth buying in, if that makes sense. They bought in when we were down. And so it almost should be the other way. Like we should reward the guys that helped us get here. And then if you're buying in today into what this club is, it's like, no, you get paid less than those guys. Those guys are the guys that gave sweat equity to get us here. And I think that if I'm spending club dollars, I'd rather reward those guys than I would reward someone new that hasn't done anything for us. So that's where I fear that. And where this goes with Sancho is it's a really easy conversation for me. And it's, to Jaden, it's like, do you want to be a part of this? Because you felt what you got to feel here. The guys like you like the guys, you want to be here, and you look at what everyone else makes. And that's why it's not fair. That's why you can't make double than these guys. It's like, I know that's what you got paid at United, and I know it's a big cut, and it's fine, but no one else here is making that. And to be able to keep that wage structure in line allows us to go get the best talent in the world to go win everything in the next 5 years. Like that's the sell. And if he says no, then he says no, and then we say good riddance. Like, thank you for your service. Not good riddance. That's probably overstating. Thank you for your service. We'll go our separate ways. How about that? Like that's probably the more accurate way of stating that. I think it's a conversation, man, and how he responds to it is everything. And if he wants to be a part of this, then he gets to be a part of this, and you can get in line with everybody else. But I don't disagree with you in the sense of like locking it in, and what a Nico Williams could like bring to the team and stuff. I just think this is now our system. This is now, for an obscure reference that no one listening to this will understand, this is now Syracuse basketball in the early 2000s, and we play 1-3-1 zone. And if you don't fit our 1-3-1 zone, then you don't belong here. You know what we do. You know what we do very well, and you fit this system if you would like to be here. But if you don't fit that system, then don't pick our school. That's what Chelsea's. It's what we're becoming, and I like that, and I like that we're building an identity, and we're building an identity that's run by players that were young in age that have now grown together, and they're still young, but they're a more solidified unit than they were. And I don't think we're a tough sell anymore. I think we're a hot team when you look at like where Liverpool is today, and where City is today, and where United is today, and where Tottenham is today, and where Newcastle is today. Think anyone who's 24 years old, like, who are you picking? Who are you picking for the next 5 years? Like, obviously, a lot of those teams have rich histories and things that are going well for them, and I'm not shitting on them, but a lot of them are on the down or kind of even-ish area, and Chelsea's trajectory is up.
Yeah, and I think there is, especially with the Champions League football next year, it is opening these doors to a Nico Williams, who is rumored to be going to Barcelona at this time next year, or at last year. Between him and Jamie Gittins, who's one of the hottest English talents on the continent, these doors were not open to us last year. Last year it was, hey, Jadon Sancho is, his head isn't there in Manchester. He needs a change of scenery. We'll loan him out. We were in a spot where that was our option. I don't want to pay that much for him. I would rather that money, if we are going to go high, go to one of these two guys. Now, I think Jamie Bino Gittins is going to be a little bit less on the salary side. He's young. This was really his first full season at Dortmund after being a squad player for a couple of years. He's only 20 years old. Nico Williams, and this is the reason why I would go high on him, 30 goals in his last 3 seasons for Bilbao. By the way, he's 22. 26 appearances for Spain at the age of 22. For Spain. That's not for nothing against Caicedo or Kendry Paez, but it's not Ecuador, right? This is the former world champion Spain. You want a big statement signing, I think this is your guy. But with that being said, Parker, we do have Raheem Sterling coming back.
Do we? Do we have to?
Well, I don't know. His 9-year-old son just signed with Arsenal's U9s, so
Can we just take him? Can we just grab the other Sterling? Oh man, it's funny how much time like does for something, because Raheem Sterling, like, he was still relevant at Chelsea. Like we still made him relevant because he featured for us and still had his moments. And then he goes to a team like Arsenal and just completely falls off the face of the earth. Just completely does nothing. And it's really telling to like when you look back the last 3 years ish, 3, 4 years of the people that we sold and the crap that we dealt with as Chelsea fans because these dudes have done, almost nothing. Going back to Jorginho, but Jorginho, Mount, Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, like these are dudes that won Champions Leagues with us, and they have done nothing else since coming back or leaving Chelsea. So we are healing as a club, and we are shedding our skin and dare I say it, Collins, there's a butterfly in there. There's a fucking butterfly in there. We are spreading our wings, man. It's good stuff.
So let me ask you this: is Chelsea back? No, I'm just kidding. Um,
That is a conversation that I will only have after like 4 glasses of whiskey and when all three of us are here together.
Fair. All right. Well, we do have in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from time of recording, our first match at the Club World Cup. June 16th is the opener. We'll open at America's Butthole, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta against LAFC. 4 days later, we'll head to Philadelphia, another one of America's buttholes. Play Flamengo, and then finish the group again in Philadelphia against Esperance de Tunis. What are your expectations in this brand new club competition?
Um, it's a new format, right?
Yep, it used to be every year. They're going to the every 4 year format now with 32 teams.
Okay. So is it similar? Like, do you know the structure of it, like the group stage and then get out and go into a knockout or something?
Yep. So it used to be a straight knockout tournament. The winner of each confederation plus a couple play-ins and the host. It is now similar to the National Team World Cup. It's groups of four, top two advance to a knockout, um, so on and so forth.
Gotcha. Which they're shifting again because we're groups of three now going forward once it's 2026. So
Yeah.
the old format. Got it. Expectations are to get out of our group and then see who we're kind of paired against. I don't. Flamenco actually really intrigues me given the amount of signings that they've made in the last couple months. So I think Flamenco could actually be a pretty tough matchup of players that are maybe not in their prime but bigger names that have something to prove, whether they've been at top clubs or not. So the other two don't truly scare me. So I think we get out, but I think we use the Club World Cup, and I know FIFA put some like restrictions and some rules around like not resting players and playing. They want it to be a spectacle. They don't want it to be a just a trot out whoever you want, then make 11 subs at halftime kind of a contest. But I think Chelsea needs to treat it a little bit like a training ground, a live training ground where you can experiment a little bit with some of those guys. So like Inasugo definitely needs to start one or two of those matches and just to see how he works. And I think you just need to try out a couple of options with your back line, with who inverts from a wing back standpoint, or running three at the back, or kind of morphing your style a little bit. So I think it's going to be, it's interesting timing for Maresca because he has a full season under his belt, not much break time. So everyone's going to be more or less in shape, and everyone's going to be there to compete. And then he gets to just kind of tinker around a little bit with what's worked, what he's wanted to try, but the stakes were obviously really high at the end of the year, and um, play around with. So I'm excited for a lot, and I think we see some Delap. I think we see some Noni. I think we don't see Nkunku at all. Yeah, that's where I think it is. But yeah, I would prioritize fitness and rotation over winning the cup. I don't think it's one that you need to go all out for. Be nice to have, not a must have for me.
there's a $50 million reward for winning the tournament. By comparison, the Champions League is 150. We came away with, I think it was 18 from
Conference.
the conference league. So there is incentive to go out and win it. Um, Now you talked about having the conversation about are we back? There is a possibility that the three of us will be together for a quarterfinal match between Chelsea and either PSG or Inter Miami. Yeah, hell of a match to announce that we are back. But yeah, LAFC doesn't scare me. That's a win. Esperance, if we were playing on African soil, it might be a different story. I'm not sure how well fans from Tunis or to Tunisia are going to travel. Flamengo, that one that one could go either way. And it's in Philadelphia. I don't know how big of a Brazilian population is in Philadelphia, but I know Brazilian fans travel well. Um, so I think the group is one. I would say the group is one, and then play the runner up and see, and then if we win that, the pretty much the winner of Group B, which would be PSG in the quarterfinals. Um, I think that's my expectation right now. Quarterfinals.
And I think, playing PSG, team that literally just won the Champions League in a resounding way of the 5-0 win. I think that's going to be a good litmus test to see how far along in this project we are, because I think unfortunately in the Premier League, when we played up against top talent, and I'll caveat it by saying top talent when there's something to play for, but when we played against top talent, we did look a step behind. Um, Not in every game, but in a good amount of them. So, I'm really looking forward to this season because I think we get to see us against top talent again, and just bigger stages, brighter lights. There's something about playing under the lights at night, which the Champions League is often played, and versus an afternoon game. So I think that it just kind of adds to the atmosphere. It adds to the stakes. So I'm excited for all of that this year.
So with this season having the worst ever Europa League final, I'm going to go out on a limb and say the worst ever Champions League final, and an English powerhouse against a plucky team from Spain in the Conference League.
The best ever Conference League final.
Yes, the out of two or however many they've played, I don't even know. Um, if American sports, American sports broadcasters and all that need something good here. TNT has the rights. We're now going to have the world's worst NBA finals with Indiana and Oklahoma City. Chuck and the crew are done at TNT. They've lost the contract there. Do we get the NBA on TNT team for the Club World Cup?
I think they're going to ESPN, aren't they?
I have no idea.
I believe that crew is being revived, so it's not on TNT anymore. But ESPN has those rights, and I think they hired that squad to do it. So they're sticking together, but I think ESPN is going to ruin it. Truly, I believe ESPN is going to ruin the magic. And a lot of people say, "Well, what's the difference?" You just slap a different logo on. ESPN is going to find a way to fuck that up. As an F1 fan, watching them fuck up F1 coverage every single week, it's been brutal to watch and be a part of, and embarrassing for them as what used to be the world's leader in sport, that they can't get very basic things right anymore. So I don't know how, but you heard it here first. They will screw that up. I wish that we got something fun. Who would be your, because the Champions League has it the best, right? Like their crew of people that commentate on it with Thierry Henry and Big Meeks, like they've got it best. So who would you want on that panel?
Oh, actually calling the game or on like the pre, mid,
Yeah,
post?
the pre mid post, the NBA on TNT, that crew,
You know, I hate Paramount Plus, but I have to say I love their crew that does that. You believe Thierry Henry's on there occasionally. Micah Richards is on there.
Yeah, they do the Champions League.
Yeah, no, that's That's a solid group. I can't remember the name of the host for Paramount, but take her off and put Rebecca Lowe on there,
Yeah, I
and I think I'm good at that point.
believe it's Kate Scott who does the Champions League one. So, um, you know who I would want to see on there? I would sub. I know Big Meeks, yeah, Micah Richards. He's kind of the sort of the laughing stock, the one that they kind of poke fun at. I would like to see for my character someone who brings some big energy. Give me Drogba.
Ooh,
Because I
okay.
think Drogba would be a lot of fun on there, especially because they played against Thierry, like they overlapped a good amount. Like, and so I think coming from the same era, him and Henri would have some fun dynamics together, and I would enjoy sort of his perspective on that kind of crew. He was my first round draft pick if I were to put together a panel.
If we weren't playing in it, I would say put Cole Palmer on there. Man, his interviews are just chef kiss. Love every second of them. Cole, how you celebrating tonight? No comment.
I don't have any pockets, so he puts the trophy down his pants. Like,
Let me ask you guys a question. Who decides player of the tournament? I might want to tell Tosin he wants it.
I think what's funny about Cole Palmer is the jury's out. Like, is he faking this or is that truly him? Man, I believe that's 1,000% him and his personality. Like, lives pretty simply, is just the dude that's just likes to play football and just doesn't really pay attention to a lot of other outside influences and just is exactly who he is.
And he did say as much. I think it was after we clinched the Champions League. And, oh, Cole, there's a lot of reaction to it. How you feeling about that? He goes, oh, it's a bunch of trolls online. I don't know. I don't pay attention to that stuff. But yeah.
I'm happy.
All right. Well, assuming that this episode uploads, I think our plan of attack for the next 2 weeks. Next week we would knock out kind of our end of season awards. Hopefully we can bring Matt back for a little bit on that. Hopefully we can get him away from baby duty for maybe 30 minutes, something like that. Um, and then shit, Club World Cup time. No break for the flag stays down.
I know, and then just confirmed today a trip to Milwaukee in July. So the boys get back together, and like you said, hopefully get to watch a Club World Cup quarterfinal match together. Because I feel like the ladies can watch the kids, and the boys can head to the pub. It just sounds right to me. I don't know what you think.
You heard it here first. I'm on board.
Flag on tour.
All right. Well, if you've enjoyed what you listen to, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Follow us on social media at Flag Down Pod. Parker, any closing thoughts?
Just a nice way to close off the season, man. Season full of ups and downs, and I was really dreading a recording after we lose the conference league finals and don't qualify for top five. So I felt like there was a lot at risk, there was a lot at play, and I was not going to be in a mood to talk about that. So it was really nice to close the season off, and that's uh, good place to be, and still with momentum and things to look forward to and things to build towards. So like the building doesn't stop that we did this, but good to be in this seat versus the other one.
Amen. Well, cheers to good vibes, and we'll talk to you next week.
Later, buddy.